Hey guys, thank you so much for signing up for my Nuts for Christmas, our cute little nutcracker class. My name is Kristen Grunder from Grunderfully Delicious, and I'm so happy that you're here. So I recorded this class yesterday and went to go edit it, and none of the sound was working. So this is my second time recording it, so hopefully it's better than the first. So you should have your little cookie kit. I'm gonna go over about what's inside. So if you wanna just watch for now, we have our icing pods, all of our cookies. Our featured flavor today is orange cranberry sugar cookie. It's delicious. It does have almond extract, so just to let you know about that. And we have some sprinkles, so set those aside. And then here we have this little packet. This packet has our scribe tool, a marker, a picture for reference. Don't lose the little piece of parchment paper that's in there. It has our practice sheet. And lastly, it has some extra piping bags in case you end up cutting your hole too big or anything like that. So go ahead and get everything out of your bag, or your box rather, and meet me back here. So a quick rundown of our class. I am going to show you how to practice first so that you get a feel of the icing on this practice sheet, and then I'm going to show you step by step how to outline your cookies, how to fill them in. We are going to start with a royal icing transfer, which is what this parchment paper and mustache is for. So we'll start with that before we actually get into our cookies so that that has time to dry. So before we start practicing, I want you to give all your bags a really good massage, especially the red, green, and black. Those ones need extra massage time. They paid extra for this because they are a thinner consistency icing, and we just want to make sure that they are mixed really well. It's also important that you have a paper towel with you. I actually like to get mine wet because royal icing, it does tend to get kind of crusty. So this will just help keep your area nice and clean. And then you want a nice pair of scissors. Something else that's really helpful with this class is having like a table fan. That will help speed up the process, especially for that mustache that we're doing. So if you have a table fan, definitely get that ready as well. Also, if you notice, there's a lot of this extra plastic here on the bags. I actually like to cut that off. It is optional, but this is what I do to help keep my area tidy. Don't cut too close to the tape, but leave about 2 inches. If you cut too close, the icing will come out the top a lot easier. So go ahead and massage your bags. If you want your cookies to look just like mine, just like this adorable set right here, then I highly recommend you watch all the steps that I show on the screen, even with the practice sheet. Make sure that you're watching everything and that you listen, and then you can pause and work on your cookies. But yes, it is very important that you watch all the steps that I do. So we're going to practice with our yellow. There's a very specific way to cut your piping bag. I like to hold my, if you look, there's a seam, okay? This seam I like to hold up toward the ceiling so it's facing up and centered, and then I flatten my tip. It's better to cut your hole too small than too big because you can always cut more, you can't take it back. If you do end up cutting your hole too big, you do have 3 extra bags here to rebag. All you would do is just cut a big hole out of your old bag and squeeze it into the new bag. But I always like to cut smaller than I think I need. So my seam is facing up, flatten the tip, teeny, so tiny, straight across. So don't cut yours yet, just watch. But whenever I first cut my hole, I always squeeze some icing onto my paper towel to get that air out. My goal is to get my yellow icing as thick as this black line. I can already tell I need to go a touch thicker. So if you do need a recut, you want to make sure that seam is facing back up and that you re-flatten the tip, and then you just cut a smidge more off, because if you that seam, you want it facing up, because if it gets in the way, your icing is going to curl on you. It doesn't matter where the seam is though when you're using the bag. So I'm going to hold the bag by pinching the tape with my thumb and my pointer finger, and then I roll the pod so it's nice and tight, resting the pod in my hand while keeping the tape closed. I'm gonna squeeze right here with my 3 fingers in my palm. Even though this tape is here, it won't prevent the icing from coming out the top. I like to hold my wrist steady, and then I start by touching my tip on the paper, gently squeeze. As soon as the icing hits the paper, I'm lifting my tip about an inch high and just letting the icing fall on the line. If you're dragging your tip, you're not going to get a nice straight line. Because I'm lifting here, I'm going to release the pressure a little before the end, and then I lay the rest down. So if your line is breaking, that means you're not squeezing hard enough. And if your line is squiggly, either you're squeezing too hard or your hole might be too small. So I want to show you how high I hold my tip, and then you guys can go for your line. So my tip touches, squeeze, lift right away, let the icing just fall, but because I'm lifted high, I want to release the squeeze a little early, lay it down, touch. I hope you could see that. But go ahead and work on your lines, give this a pause, and then meet me back for the rest of the practice sheet. For the waves and the swirls, we're going to start with our tip touching just like before, squeeze, lift, but this time this time I had a little toot in my bag, so we're just going to wipe that off. I had a little air bubble. So we're going to touch, squeeze, lift, and I'm squeezing slightly softer on the bag, looking at where I want that icing to fall. When I get ready to stop, I release the pressure, lay it down. One thing I forgot to mention, you want to keep your tip clean, so I'm often just giving this a little swipe. Touch, lift, look a little bit ahead of where you want the icing to fall, looking at the black below, squeezing just hard enough for that line to not break, release the pressure, touch. The circle here, we're just going to do the same thing, lift, touch. We're going to go even slower though. We are taking our time here, looking at the black line. I'm not even looking at the yellow. I'm looking at where I want this icing to fall. Squeezing soft, but hard enough for that line to not break. Release the pressure and touch. That was perfect, guys. That was perfect. For the heart, the only thing I want to show you here is that every point or corner, you're going to put your tip down. So I'll show you what I mean. I have a starting point, I touch, then I lift. When I get down to this point though, I want to touch again. So touch, and then start where I left off, lift up. This will give me nice sharp edges and also allow me to have control of the icing. So go ahead and practice the rest of your sheet, and when you're done, fold it in half because you don't want this to crust and get icing all over your counter later, so just fold that in half, set that aside. So go ahead and pause this and meet me back here, and then we'll start our royal icing transfers. So this is now we're going to start our royal icing transfers. So we have a parchment paper and a little mustache template. I do have a clipboard here. If you can, just set either, if you're going to put this in front of a fan, you want to make sure you have something holding it down. Let it be like a book or something heavy that will not have it fly away. But I have my parchment on the top, and then I'm going to put my little template of mustaches on the bottom. And we're going to do what I call royal icing transfers. Have you ever done one before? Royal icing transfers. So why don't you massage your white while you are watching this? But what these are, basically, I want this mustache to look absolutely perfect, just like it is in this photo. If I were to just pipe these on with nothing to trace, they would probably be lopsided. So this will just allow me to make them perfect, where I can dry them and I can unstick them from the paper and put them on my cookie. So my seam is facing up, tiny hole straight across. This icing, the white, is a little bit of a thinner consistency, so start off just a touch thinner than you did for practice. But I'm going to show you what to do, and then you guys are going to go for it. So again, I start by touching my tip on the paper. I like to hold the paper down. I'm right here in this point, and then I lift up, and I'm going to do two of the left sides. We only need one mustache for our guy, but I'm making an extra just in case anything breaks. So I'm doing both of the left sides first, so just the outline. And instead of piping the one right directly next to it, I want to scooch this paper over a little bit, and I'm going to pipe the other side so that they're not touching. And the reason I'm doing this is because it'll take too long to dry if it's all one piece. This will make it dry way faster. Yeah, less chance of cracking. So just outline, and now we're going to fill them in. I recommend waiting a minute before filling them in, but to fill them in, when we outline we lift, right? But when we fill in, we're actually going to almost touch the tip to the paper, and I squeeze my bag. I'm making these, just puffy enough to where they smooth out. I don't want them too puffy because I want them to dry in time by the time the class is over. But if you have a fan, you can definitely puff yours up a lot. But my tip is in there, and I'm just kind of mushing it around, kind of pushing it up against the outline, squeezing, making sure to keep this tape closed. So you guys can go ahead and work on yours. Fill in both mustaches and then meet me back here. All right, I have all my cookies out, and we're going to start outlining our cookies. We're going to start with our tree set first. I like to outline my cookies because it helps prevent the icing from spilling over. This green icing is a lot thinner of a consistency than what you've been working with, so make sure you massage that really well, and that you're going to cut your hole just a little bit smaller because this icing will flow out faster. The reason why I make it thinner is so that it's easier to smooth out. So teeny tiny hole, squeeze some onto my paper towel. I'm going to show you how to outline each of these, and then you guys are going to go for it. So I'm going to start with the easiest cookie first. This is our first section, our middle section of our tree, which is 2 separate sections. So I'm going to start by touching my tip on the cookie, squeeze, lift, and touch. Go all the way around, going as close to the edge as I can go, holding my hand steady, and I'm going to go all the way through the middle, back up, and release the pressure, touch. This is with our green icing, lifting, going as close to the edge as I can go. Anytime you're moving these ones around, just make sure you're being mindful that you don't stick your finger in it. So I'm gonna just be very careful as I move these around. For this section here, we're gonna start with our green first, and then later we'll do our stand. So I start at the top, going straight across and touch, then around, all the way around, and then I'll come and do the stand now, lifting. Oh no, I messed up, guys. You guys, if you mess up, you're going to take your little scribe tool. I like to use this fat side and just wipe that off, okay? That's what this is for, but make sure you keep it nice and clean so that there's no crusties on there. And then you just go back to doing what you're doing. Pretend it never happened. All the way around and touch. And now with the bottom tree, I started with the green. With the top of the tree, we're going to start with the yellow. You guys do have an edible marker where you can draw the shape of the star right here, but I'm going to show you how I do it without drawing it. I'm just kind of imagining where these two, the center of these legs, are going to meet. So I'm making a tiny little dot. Now I'm going to outline the star, and I'll show you how I do this. So I lift, I touch, lift, go around, touch. Remember every corner. And then when I get here, I'm gonna touch that little dot that I made and go around here and touch that dot. See? Now I'll outline the green. So I want you to outline all your cookies and then meet me back here. and I'm going to show you how to fill them all in. So before we fill these cookies in, we actually want to outline the pants. To fill a cookie in, you need to cut your hole bigger, but I want a small hole to outline the pants of my nutcracker. If you look here, this is going to be the cuff of the boots. That is my guide right here in this corner where to start the pants. I'm going to touch and then go straight across and touch, lift, touch at every point. And then the last line, our final green line, is just right down the middle. So you'll do that, and then you're going to come back to the rest of your cookie. So you'll set this one aside. So you can pause it right now if you want to outline that. And then you're going to come over and you're going to start filling these guys in. So with this first one, I'm going to fill in just the top, because I want, if I filled both of these in right now, it would just be one big blob. There would be no separation. So I'm just going to fill in the top one. I'm going to cut my hole a little bit bigger just to make the flooding a little bit easier. So just a touch more of the bag. You can always cut more, but you still want to have control of the icing. And instead of lifting like we did when we outlined, I'm actually going to almost touch my tip to the cookie. I'm not dragging my tip, but I am just above the cookie so that I can direct where this icing goes. And I'm squeezing this tape closed so that I don't get icing all over my hands. But I like to go around the outline first, but I like to push the icing around with the tip of my bag. If you notice though, when I fill this in, I'm not going to leave any holes. I don't want to be spreading a bunch of icing around. That usually means I didn't add enough icing. If you do need to spread any around, you're going to use your scribe tool. Hold it like a pencil and kind of push it around. But again, if you're doing that, it usually means you didn't add enough icing. You can also give the cookie a little stab and shake to smooth it out. One important thing to do is to make sure icing isn't spilling over. After each cookie that you flood, you need to check this. If icing's spilling over, it's a very quick, easy fix. All you're going to do is just wipe it off around the edge, okay? But you have to catch that right away, otherwise you go back to it and it's going to be too late. You're going to crack your surface. So I'm only going to fill in this green section and then the other green section on my tree, leaving this middle section not completely flooded. I'm also not going to fill in the yellow yet. So only flood what I'm showing you here, so you guys can go ahead and do that. I'm going to continue on. So while those are crusting, our first 3 cookies, we're going to start outlining our next 3 cookies. I'm going to start with my white here on the pants, and I'm going to outline the cuffs of the boots. So straight across, touch, lift, touch, and then down the center. Make sure your black is really, really, really well mixed up. And then we're going to outline our boot. All the way around the cookie. And then down the middle. All right, we have a marker, an edible marker, if you'd like to draw on your cookie. You can also freehand it with your piping bags, but I'm going to show you guys how to use the marker. Starting with where the shoulder pads are, there's a little point sticking out. I'm just going to draw a straight line from that point as my guide. And then next I'll draw a little line for the cuffs. Now I don't want this line to, hold on 1 second. Sorry about that. I want this line to go slightly past the cuff, okay? Because I want this to be a nice rounded hand. So we're just gonna do a little, so it goes just slightly past the cuff. And what's nice about the marker is you can just draw until you're happy with it. For the arm, I'm going to go slightly inside of the shoulder pad and just make a little line slightly in the shoulder pad, not all the way to the edge there. And now I'm going to outline this cookie, starting with the shoulders. And this particular cookie, it is important to go in the order that I'm going to show you here. So I'm going to start with my shoulder pads. Instead of going down to the arms, I'm actually going to outline my little cuffs first, because then everything else will connect. I'm going to take my red. My red is not open yet. Our red is loose like our green, so small hole for that. We'll do a line straight down, and then another line here, and then a line on the outside. We're going to do the neckline. We want to do the hands, so there's an ivory color here for the hands. Now, this is going to look pretty light, similar to the white color, so just know that I'm using ivory for the hands. This is our ivory. So I'm going to outline this and make a circle. And the very last thing I'm going to do is the bottom of this jacket. Now I'm going to outline our little face, which this one also you can draw out first if you need to. But I'm going to go in this particular order, just like I did with the jacket. I'm going to start with these little points that are sticking out right here is going to be my little band for my hat. So I'm going to touch, squeeze, lift, slight curve to one side, and touch. Slight curve, and touch. Close off the sides. Then I'll take my red and I will outline the hat. Lift, touch, all the way around. The top of the hat also gets an outline. This is with my yellow. And then I'm going to take the ivory, the same color I did my hands, and I'm going to outline the face. I'm looking here at this little curve. This is where I want to make sure that I hit. So I start here and I'm going to do kind of a circle, but I'm making sure to hit those curves. This one also, you can totally, again, use that marker to draw that out if you'd like. Here's our white. What's nice about doing this at home is you can pause, you can rewind if you need to see anything again, but this is what you guys are going to outline here, and then meet me back here when you are all done. Once you are done outlining those, you want to bring back your tree, the tree that we didn't finish flooding, and you're going to flood the rest of this. So because we waited for that to crust, it gives us that little bit of separation. So this is after you outline your little nutcracker soldier, you can fill in your tree. It's important that you start with that one because we are going to do details on that pretty soon. So we want this drying. And now I'm going to show you how to fill in the rest of these. And you're going to want to only fill in what I show you here. I'm going to kind of speed through this for you so you don't have to watch for very long. But what's important about this one here, the shoulder pads, our yellow is really thick, so it's going to take a little work from you to smooth out. What I'm going to do is going to fill it until it's nice and full, Then I insert my tip and squeeze and jiggle until it's nice and puffy. All right, we're just filling in things that are not touching each other. So I don't want to fill in the arm right now because I really want these shoulder pads to be nice and crisp. So I'm not going to fill in anything but this part of this cookie, and that's how we're going to do everything else. So go ahead and keep watching, and then you guys can go for it. Once those first sections for your nutcracker are drying, you're going to go back to your tree, and once your second layer has crusted, it only takes about 5 minutes or so for things to crust. We're going to start our little garland on this tree. So I'm going to show you. I would suggest doing a couple practice lines before you commit to your cookie, but I'm going to go ahead and start here right on the top. I'm lifting, and I curve, and I touch. But definitely practice a few of these. What's important about this one here is this is 2 separate sections. You're not going to do garland across the whole thing. You're going to do it section by section. And I like to reference this picture to kind of see where I have these placed. And we're going to let these crust. So the only thing on the tree that's not flooded at this point is going to be the stand. And now we have our garland on here. When you're done with that, you can go ahead and start filling in the rest, not the rest of your nutcracker, but much more of it. I'm going to show you here. The only thing we're not going to flood here at this point is going to be the cuffs. So I'm going to show you how I flood everything else. All right, so now we have everything filled in for our nutcracker except for the cuffs. We're gonna let the hands and arms dry. Right now this is completely flooded, the pants and boots. Our tree just has the star and the stand that is not filled in, but we don't want to fill that in yet because we need the small hole for our yellow details. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to start these details. We want a small hole for our yellow, and I would recommend practicing this a few times, but I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how it's done. I'm going to zoom out a little bit here, or let's zoom in first. So I'm going to go ahead and touch my tip right here. I like to start with all the yellow sections, and I lift and I meet back up. So I'm making these 3 little loops. Now, if you practice these loops and you notice that it's hard to get them nice and clean looking, your hole might be too big. So you'll want to rebag your yellow and recut your hole. So you'll do that for all of these, and then you're going to do a little dot right at the top. So I touch my tip to the cookie and I squeeze. Then I release the pressure and lift. And then you'll do all the yellow, and then you'll do red dots. So I touch my tip, squeeze, release the pressure, then lift. For the white, I'm going to do the same thing, but smaller. I want to spread these out a little bit because at least here in California, it's pretty chilly. These will spread a little bit more, so you want to make sure that they're just kind of spread out a little bit so that they don't run into each other. So go ahead and work on your details on your tree. Now we can start our details on our nutcracker. So I'm going to start with this section right here. I'm going to zoom in to do the little detail on here, and feel free to be creative. I'm just going to kind of do a U shape at the top. So I touch my tip and I lift, and I do another drop, touch, and one more. So you want to do all these yellow details first before you do your star and stand. I'm going to do the same little loops as I did on the tree. I'm going to do those on the shoulder pads. The bottom of the jacket, there's these little teardrop shapes, and to do that, I'm just going to do a dot, 3 dots, take my scribe tool, and just gently drag points on all of these. This is how we're going to do our eyebrows too. One more detail on our nutcracker, which is going to be on the hat, and then we can do our star and our stand. So just the same loops, just a larger scale. Feel free to design this however you want. The picture has double loops. I'm just going to leave it like this. The boots and everything are done, but if you want, you can add buckles to it. Mine aren't quite dry enough yet, but you can do 2 little dots here if you want. And now we can come back to our tree as well. And I'm going to show you how to do the star. At this point, we can cut our yellow hole bigger. Doink. I want my sprinkles ready, and I'm just going to fill in the star. And because it is so thick, it's going to need a little help for you to smooth out. And I'm kind of taking my scribe tool and just kind of jiggling the surface here, and you can also use the tip of your bag for that. But once you've smoothed that out, you can take your sprinkles and you'll just drizzle those puppies on. And then the stand, we're just going to flood that as well. So I suggest watching all of this, and then you guys can really just take your time doing all your details on your cookies. Right away, I'm going to add a little white swoop, and you can do that by just touching your tip to the cookie, making a dot, and kind of dragging your tip in there to make a little swoopy point. So I'm going to show you our final steps right now. So I'm going to have you wait to work on yours. I want you to watch all these steps, and then you guys can really take your time finishing them up. To finish up our little nutcracker, we're going to take our parchment paper, and we're going to really carefully, as carefully as you can. If you didn't have a fan, you are going to want to wait about 2 hours to do this. But if you did have a fan, still handle these extremely carefully because they are still wet. But I'm going to add a little dot to glue my little mustaches on. You could also just pipe a little baby mustache if these didn't work out. Look up some nutcracker photos and see what other people have done. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to carefully peel around the sides of this and loosen it, and then be extremely, you don't want to put any pressure on this, but I'm just lifting it up, and I'll set it right on. You don't want to press down either very hard, just like extremely gentle on there. So I'm going to show you the other one. I'm going to use this top one. You're loosening up all around the entire mustache before you even think about peeling it off. So all the edges are pulled up. I'm going to lift that off and gently place it on my cookie. Don't press down super hard because then you're going to crack your cute little mustache. I'm going to add a nose. I'm going to do a touch smaller than I want because it will spread a little bit when it's chilly out. Little eyes, I'm going to take my black. I'm going to do them slightly smaller than I want because again they're going to spread just a touch. If you wait longer for these sections to crust though, you'll have less of a chance of them spreading. For the eyebrows, I'm going to do dots right above the eyes big white dots, and then take my scribe tool and just go straight across. If you go downward, he's gonna look mad. We don't want a mad nutcracker, do we? He looks a little angry. And then when you're done with that, the very last step, and the reason I waited long to do these cuffs is because I want to prevent color bleed. So I want the red to crust as much as possible. And then I just fill these guys in. And this is your set. So you want to let these dry overnight, or at least 18 hours before you package them, before you put them in like a Ziploc or Tupperware. Make sure that they have crusted all the way, which takes about 18 hours. But yes, these are our cookies. I love them. I'm so happy you guys joined me. Let's go over here. Yeah, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a very Merry Christmas. I'm so excited for Christmas this year. And yeah, I hope to see you again. See you later.